Yes, ma'am.
Technical question on photos. For the photos that you share with other patients, do you have the patients whose photos you're sharing sign a release form?
Yes.
Sign form?
Yes. So as part, so the question was, if we're sharing photos of other patients, do we have them sign a release form? Yes. And the way I do that is twofold. Most of the before and after pictures don't have faces in them. So those are just teeth, lips, or retracted smiles without lips. So that's one way. The other way is on our new patient forms, it has a photo release already incorporated in that. So when they sign it, they're signing our photo release. And 99.99999% of patients sign it and they're fine with it. I have had 2 or 3 over the last 13 years that have said, I really don't feel comfortable. It's like, okay, then you don't have to sign that. Well, you know, we're not going to use your photos. And then anybody that's on the wall with a full face portrait, I have a second release for them. Yeah. So yes, you do want to protect, you know, yourself and them. So it doesn't have to be costly or time consuming. I just encourage you to master the skills of photography because it will make a huge difference. So the more photos you take, the more dentistry you'll do. 3 simple ways to master photography is actually, the first one is to just take the photos. Take the photos. Train your team to take the photos. This is another thing that we do in our hands-on workshop. We actually put the cameras in the assistant's hand and we teach them. They do better than the dentist anyway. They love it because it's more expansion of their duties. It's more complex things that they get to practice and they get to master and that's new to them and fresh to them versus just using the suction all day, every day. The second way to master photography is to prepare the patient. You give them a point of reference. They don't always know what they're looking at. It amazes me sometimes when patients say, is that my mouth? Are those my teeth? I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, you didn't know that? That looks just like you. But they don't recognize it because we do this every day and they don't. So give them a reference. You know, here's the right side, here's the left side. This is what's normal. Here's your smile. Give them a point of reference. And then present the treatment or the benefits. You know, Mrs. Jones, see that crack over there on that tooth? Well, the good news is that we can cover that tooth and protect it with a crown, with an onlay, with a whatever. So that's the good news. So help the patient see the possibility and create that awareness. Because when you do that, they're going to start asking you for things that you never dreamed. And it's about giving them the opportunity. You know, the reason we got into dentistry is not because some patients say no, but the reason why we got into dentistry is because a lot of patients will say yes. And so you're going to get some patients that say no, and that's okay. But the point is that you work with the ones that say yes. And the ones that say no maybe just need to KNOW more information or more time or more options. So helping to create that awareness. Here's the photo guide that I was telling you about. This breaks down different views. You may use these, you may use different ones. It doesn't matter. The point is that you're taking standard photos on your new patients or on every patient's or existing patients, however it works best in your practice. I like them on all new patients, and inevitably, you know, when we don't take them on the one patient, that's the one patient that's interested in Invisalign or in cosmetic dentistry. And if you want to do more cosmetic dentistry, take more photos. Because that's what they see. That's what they see. I was out at the Scottsdale Center in August with Dr. Frank Spear, and he said, you know, a lot of people ask me, I can't take photos. Which ones do I take? Oh, I don't have time to do it. He said, you don't have time not to do it. And you can't afford not to do it. And I agree with that, 110%. You can't afford not to take photos. So get a camera, start taking some pictures, practice on your team, develop your systems, and show them to patients. You'll get better and better. This happens to show the different views and it kind of helps line up some things. So if you want these, I'm happy to send this to you. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a camera recommendation?
I am not an expert in cameras. I have my big AACD camera that's in my office that sits there, and then I have the camera that the team uses every day because they love it. The resource that I would give you is PhotoMed. That's where I got both of my cameras. They have lenses that will adapt on cameras that you can buy at Best Buy or at Amazon or wherever. I use a Canon G10, I'm pretty sure, for the in-office every day. It's small, it's portable. These ones with the multi-ring flash and all that stuff, they're heavy. You can't hold the mirror, So it's much nicer to have something that the assistants can use and do by themselves. Yes, sir?
PhotoMed has a nice little lightweight point and shoot with
yes,
the lenses.
Exactly.
$600.
Yes, that's exactly what we've been using. We've had it for probably 5 or 6 years. It works great. They love it. They plug it into Dentrix. It downloads into Dexis, into the imaging software. It's simple. You've got to have things that are easy for the team to use. They also will give you all the photo settings for whichever camera and lens you buy. So it's a great resource. So anything that I can help with that, please ask me. I'm happy to do so. And there's my email, again, if you want a copy of this. So these are just some examples. Yes, I'm sorry.
Typically, how long is your new patient exam?
He asked, how long is my new patient exam? Typically, my new patient exam is scheduled on the second doctor column with my new patient coordinator, and it's scheduled from an hour to an hour and a half, depending on how complex they are when Michelle's interviewing them on the phone. So they typically are not seeing the hygienist that same day unless they've been seen every 6 months. We have current films, yada, yada, yada. And so we say that to them. You know what, Mrs. Jones, it's been 10 years. We're not sure what type of hygiene appointment you're gonna need. There's a lot of different treatments, and we wanna do what's best for you. Let's see you first. If we can work it out to do your hygiene appointment that same day, great, we'll accommodate you. But there's a possibility that you may need to come back for a second appointment. So, that can be an obstacle. Well, my patients won't come back. Well, nobody wants to come back. They want a cleaning. Well, yes, they all do that. And the reason why the patients want that is because every place they've ever lived, they call and say, I need a cleaning. They don't even know what that means. Or the second question they ask, do you take my insurance? They don't have a clue of what that means. And so it's our job to educate them. And like Linda was saying earlier, of figuring out what we want and how we want our practice to be, and creating the practice of our dreams and our masterpiece, and helping to assume those patients into that and helping guide them down the path versus letting them run the show, because they don't know what they don't know. And so it's us sort of guiding them and saying, hey, this is really in your best interest. Now, if it's a 21-year-old that hasn't had a restoration in their life, we're not taking impressions. I mean, there's reason. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah. It varies, because I do have teenagers that have TMJ issues or have had trauma. I had a girl the other day, she's 17, she slipped at work, 3 front teeth. She's got 2 that have had root canals and will have crowns, and the other one's an implant. So she's 17.
So you have to ask questions.
Yeah, yeah. So you just never know. And then I have people that are, 85 that don't have a single dental restoration, have all their natural teeth. So it's so variable. But getting that information up front, which is why it's important to have some sort of phone communication script so that you know, and that your team is very knowledgeable and they can field those calls and get as much information as possible without making the new patient phone call 2 hours long. So this is a before and after. So if somebody comes in with an old partial, they don't like it. Okay, here, have you ever seen what dental implants look like? Okay, here, this patient was able to get rid of her partial that comes in and out, and now she brushes these teeth just like all of her other teeth. And I apologize for this projector, by the way. But, making it easy for them to say yes. And so after the new patient experience and after their initial phone call, then I sit down with them, and this is sort of where the rubber meets the road. And we start talking about, well, what do I see and what do I recommend? And I use Dr. Frank Spear's system for looking at teeth. And I tell the patients, we're going to look at your teeth from an aesthetic point of view of how your teeth look. And you know what, Mrs. Jones, I know you didn't come in asking me about, improving the way your teeth look, so we can certainly skip that if you'd like. But, there are some options to maybe improve the way things look. Would you like to hear those? And so I let them choose. I want to give them the opportunity to say yes. I think so many times as dentists, we don't ever give the patient the chance to say yes. We assume for whatever reason that they won't. And we don't give them an opportunity to say yes. So I show them their photos and we sort of walk through that. And then we talk about the function and how their teeth work and why they're worn, or what's happening. We also look at the structure of their teeth, the actual teeth themselves. Are they cracked? Do they have huge amalgams? Do they have decay? What's going on with the structure of their teeth? And then what's going on with the biology of their teeth, the substructure, their perio, their supporting bone. Do they have bone loss? Are they missing teeth? What's going on? And then I offer them the ideal treatment. I offer them what I would want someone to offer me if I was in their position. And then I try to show them some possibilities of what's possible. A lot of times patients just don't even realize what modern dentistry can offer. They've never, they might have heard about dental implants or Invisalign or crowns, but they don't really understand it. And so it's our job to show them those possibilities. And then I want to make it easy. So whether we use Care Credit, whether we phase dentistry, whether we use their flex spending account, whatever. However it needs to work to make it easy for them to accomplish the best ideal treatment. Now, I practice realistically. I'm not pie in the sky, oh, smell me. No, that's not how I operate. It's about offering the best and letting them choose. If they can't have the best, then what can they do? Can they break it up? Can they do it over time? Can we find another alternative that's going to be equally as good? It's about finding those solutions and finding those possibilities. So I know that a lot of times patients don't necessarily want to return for a second appointment, but when they find out that it's in their best interest, because now I'm going to have time to sit down and study their case, then they're usually agreeable to it. Or we can combine it with their hygiene appointment or their periodontal therapy. How many of you are using the oral DNA bacterial testing? Anybody? 1, 2, 3? It's awesome. Are you loving it? Yeah. Hey, the rest of you that don't know about it, oraldna.com, write this down. I don't get anything from Oral DNA for saying this. They have a swish and spit saliva test that will give you the levels of the 11 pathogenic bacteria, as well as recommendations for antibiotics that work on those bacteria. It's awesome. I've always been very proactive on treating periodontal disease, but now it's just like x-rays, it's just like the intraoral camera. Now I have something that I can show the patients and that I can see what I couldn't see before. So the tests are an exclusive through Henry Schein. You buy, 12 kits, whatever, you send them off. I think it ends up costing you about $120 for the whole test. So we charge the patient, I think, $175. It's fantastic. I've been using it for the last 2 years. It really has revolutionized what we're able to do with our periodontal therapy, and we're seeing such great results and so much better than where we were 2 years ago. So if you haven't seen that, talk to your Schein rep, talk to Oral DNA. They're happy to come talk to you about that. Yes?
Is that equivalent to the PST?
The PST meaning the periodontal screening?
Periodontal susceptibility test.
Oh, there are 2 versions of that. Are you talking about through Oral DNA?
No.
I'm not sure which one.
It's one that actually some of the insurance companies are going to start mandating that you do before you do any treatment.
Well,
and the payment is dependent on the score that the patient gets.
Interesting. Oral DNA has 2 tests. They have a periodontal susceptibility test, and then they have the bacterial. So I think it may be, because as far as I know, they're the only people doing it. But how interesting. So say that again. Yes.
It's one of the Delta insurances are doing their own research, and they think that they're going to change their reimbursement based on the susceptibility of patients. If the patient's not going to respond to therapy, they're not going to pay you to do it.
Interesting.
In Michigan that are paying for the test, patients are paying for
for it out of pocket.
Yeah, most of our patients are paying out of pocket. We've had a handful that have been covered, but usually it's not very many. But it gives me such much better information and more specific. Now, instead of throwing everything at the wall and hoping that something sticks, we can pinpoint if they have the high risk pathogens or the moderate risk or the lower risk, then we know how to be more specific in the treatment, which ultimately ends up saving them money, and we can be more conservative and yada, yada, yada. Yes, were you asking something? Somebody had their hand up?
I think I did, but you just
Okay. So look into that. There's some exciting things coming down the pike.
What's the turnaround time for that?
It usually takes about a week to 10 days, depending on, once you send the test in, you send it in FedEx. They send you all the resources to be able to do that, and then you have your own portal set up. So once they run the test, then they send you an email saying, hey, their test is ready, and you access it through your portal. But it's a 2-day, FedEx or UPS shipment going out of the office. But it's been really good. So, the reasons for having this separate consult. Well, one of the reasons is it allows me to put together my thoughts and to come up with an ideal treatment plan. Because on the fly, I can't decide what's going to work best. I can't see all the detail that I need to see and sit down and study. And so it allows me to sort of put together my thoughts and come up with the best options. Because when I first started practicing dentistry, I got into the trap of, there's a cracked tooth, let's do a crown. There's a hole, let's fill it. And when you get in that trap, and not that that's bad, but what happens is then you paint yourself in a corner. Because let's say the patient has some TMJ issues or some wear issues, and you do one crown this year, and you do another crown next year, and you do a third crown the next year. And then guess what? Things start breaking down. Well, guess who they're blaming? Doctor, that crown that you put in, your crown, is breaking down. And so I've found that it's much more predictable for me to do my homework up front and know what I'm dealing with and say to the patient, Mrs. Jones, you have a heavy bite. You have severe wear on your teeth. Whatever I use is going to break down faster than in somebody who doesn't have that same situation. So now I'm not painting myself in the corner, and I give them the option to choose. Well, maybe we use provisionals to nurse it along. Maybe we use a transitional night guard to nurse you along and buy some time. Not everybody's a full mouth reconstruction. I know that. But it's about doing the right thing and the best thing for the patient. So it allows me to evaluate their situation. It also allows the patient the time to sort of consider their budget and what they want. Because some of those things that we talk about at the new patient experience, they get to go home and kind of think about, so that when we get back together and meet, then we get to finalize those details and finalize what they want. It also allows them, like I said earlier, to combine their hygiene appointment or their periodontal therapy with that consult appointment. So I know that not everybody wants to return for a second consult, but I think most people are reasonable, and when they figure out that it's in their best interest, they will. So how do we create the awareness for patients? And how do we take a patient that's totally unaware that they have problems or dental disease without overwhelming them and without scaring them to death? How do we take them from being unaware to being aware? Well, that's a talent, and it's a skill that's developed over time, because I can promise you I've overwhelmed some people in my day. Well, one of the ways we do this is we use photography. The other thing that we do is we learn to talk to patients so that we are the reporter, and that we're not only telling them bad news, because in dental school, what do you get? Bad news, right? They say, well, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. You got to go back and do that, re-wax that, redo that, right? And we survive that with a little bit of post-traumatic stress disorder. I remember. I was there. It took me a long time and a lot of therapy to overcome that. But if we do that to patients and we beat them up like they beat us up in dental school, Who likes that? We're glutton for punishment. We as dentists are into delayed gratification, but patients aren't. And so we've got to meet them where they are. And so one of the ways we do that is we start talking to them in a way that they can understand, and we want to ask them what they want, and we want their input. And no, they may not know exactly what they need, but it's our job to help mold and put that together. And we want to share with them the possibilities and give them the opportunity to say yes. So case acceptance is certainly a process. It's not an event. There's the new patient experience. There's the diagnosis. And this is what dental school is really good on teaching us. They teach us how to find things that are wrong and how to diagnose. The part that's missing in dental school, because there's just not enough time and resources to do it, you cannot possibly learn everything you're ever going to know in dentistry in 4 years. That's sort of where dental school leaves off and your postgraduate education starts. And then we present treatment. And then the patient does the treatment. So it's not an event, it's a process. And it's enhanced every step along the way when our team members are better communicators, and we're better communicators, and we're better leaders in our practice. So it's about creating awareness. Let me show you one other thing before we move on. I use, and I'm going to give this away later, I use a material. It doesn't matter. There's a couple different brands that use this, but it used to be Discus. Now it's DenMat. It's a clear bite polyvinyl bite registration material, and it comes in a gun. You squirt it in the in a impression tray, and this is the model of the wax up. So let's say the patient wants veneers. So you send the models to the lab for a wax up. This is the model of the wax up. You make an imprint of that. After that sets, you pull that off. Now what you're going to do is you're going to fill this matrix with bisacryl material. Integrity, Luxatemp, whatever you use. Perfect Temp. And you're going to put it over the patient's unprepped teeth. So they haven't started treatment. This is before they start treatment. You're going to put it over their unprepped teeth, let it set. You're going to peel the matrix off, and you're going to show the patient their new trial smile. They get to try it before they buy it. So let me show you how this works. This helps them see what the possibilities are. Okay, so here's my hubby. You guys met him. He's helping fill in at the Miles Global table. And this was his teeth when we met. Okay, so I'm a dentist, right? This was real. This is a true story. I'm not kidding. So I'm like, babe, we've got to do something about your teeth. He said, well, what's wrong with them? I said, well, you've got chipped over here. This side's worn. This side, you've got old composite. And I know this picture is not that great because of this projector. But I said, babe, you've got a train wreck. So I took impressions, sent it to the lab. We did a wax up. Well, he's basically a full mouth reconstruction. So I brought him back. He was totally unaware. Totally. He thought he was fine. I said, oh my gosh, you're cracking teeth. You've lost one tooth already. You're an accident waiting to happen. And so I sent him to the lab, or sent the models to the lab, got the wax up back, did the matrix, and put the trial smile in. And I sat him up in the chair. So this is the Integrity over his natural teeth that are unprepped. I sat him up in the chair. The man wore it out of the office for 2 days. I'm not kidding. It finally fell apart. But I got to thinking, you know, I'm from Georgia. I'm a little bit slow, but I am teachable. And so I got to thinking, if he's a smart guy and has an engineering type brain and he didn't know the possibilities and he's dating a dentist, how many more patients don't know the possibilities? So now we do this on everybody, and guess what? They love it because they get to see what I know is possible.
It's like Snap-on Smile.
It is like Snap-on Smile, but this costs $10, that costs $500. I don't know. So it's the same thing. So you just peel it off. So you take pictures of this, and that's part of their record. Remember, we showed you that. And it's easy. You're already doing the wax up. Why not take it one step further and show it? So there he is now with his new smile. So let me show you another patient. And this isn't about my dentistry, and again, I apologize for this projector. This isn't about my dentistry. You guys could do this dentistry too. This is about using photography and using the trial smile as a tool. So let's walk through this. Here's the before. So this is actually my great aunt who married my great uncle after he was married to a lady for 60 years. His wife of 60 years passed away, and in 6 months he married this gal. Well, they are like two teenagers. And he said, they were up visiting, and he said, can you look at Jeanette's teeth? And I said, sure, I'm happy to. And I always knew they weren't very attractive, but you know, it's kind of rude to go up to people and say, here, let me see your teeth, you know, when you're at a family event. And so this is what her teeth look like. Do you know what her complaint was? It wasn't the aesthetics. She had a partial that was where, she wasn't actually going around like this. She had a partial that was replacing these. But do you know what her complaint was?
Color.
No, not color. Do you know what her complaint was? When they went out to dinner, she was still at the table eating because she couldn't eat. And he was finished. That was her complaint. She's 85. That was her complaint. It wasn't aesthetics. Now I'm like, that's atrocious, but you know, whatever. So here's her some occlusal view. You know, there's food impaction, she's got broken teeth, she's got missing teeth, she's got recurrent decay, open margins, you name it, she's got it. Here's the lower. Do you think there's some tooth wear there? She's got missing teeth, she's got a root tip that's broken off. Her partial has been added to 800 times. There's her partials. So here's her trial smile. When she sat up and saw that, she was like, you mean that I don't have to wear a partial anymore? I said, yeah, Jeanette, you don't have to wear a partial. I said, we can make these teeth stay in your mouth. Well, guess what she decided to do? All of it. She did it. She did both arches. She's 85. She did both arches. Now, I know it's not ideal. She's got missing teeth. There's a class 3. She's still missing this tooth. Her periodontist in Atlanta is going to place that lower right implant. But how much better is she now, and she can chew and she can function, and her looks, everybody says, gosh, you look 10 years younger. So here's her before and after. Huge difference. I couldn't have done that with 1 crown or 2 crowns or 1 bridge. Aren't they sweet? They're a hoot. They're a hoot. So you just never know what makes your patient say yes. But the more you have that relationship and the more they trust you, the more they will say yes, and the more you can find solutions for them. So we connect the dots with communication to our team and to our patients, and we improve our case acceptance. So let's talk about the last piece, practice profitability. Because all of this is well and good, but if we're not profitable, we won't be in business for very long. Like Linda said this morning, you want to spend less than you make. Our government, unfortunately, sometimes spends more than we make, but we need to be responsible and spend less than we make. And an ideal practice overhead is between 50 and 60%. And what I see when I'm in consulting with practices is anything from 60 to 80 to 90% overhead. And what happens is the dentists are the ones that don't get to take a salary home because everyone gets paid first. And so you guys that are new graduates or soon to be new graduates, it is so important that you control your overhead and you control your spending. Do not go out and buy a new Mercedes and a new boat and a beach home the day you graduate. Spend less than you make. The ADA and the AGD are very concerned about the amount of debt that students are graduating with. It limits your possibilities, and it limits some of the opportunities because you have this anchor around your neck of $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 worth of debt. So we're very concerned about it. So controlling the overhead. You know, when you come out of school with $500,000 worth of debt or $400,000 worth of debt, and then you want to buy into a practice, or you want to start a practice, or you want to build a practice, that's another $400,000 or $500,000, $600,000. That's a big nut to crack for a long time. And it's important because this is your future. And I want you to be able to do the dentistry you want to do. And if you've got this anchor around your neck, sometimes you get in the trap of getting on that treadmill and just drilling, filling, and billing to make ends meet. And so the more you can control this, the better. Enhancing your productivity. How can you do that? How can we increase our productivity? How can we be more efficient? You know, there are only so many hours in the day, and there are only so many days in the week. You can't work 8 days a week. You can't work 30 hours a day. So how do we be very productive when we're in the office? And then how do we protect our investments? As many of you know, maybe you've heard there's been a downturn in the economy since 2008. So how do we protect our investments and keep those there for when we're ready to retire? You know, some of you are just starting out on this journey. Some of you are midway through this journey. And some of you are at the tail end of this journey. So how do you protect your investments? Well, this graph gives you the ideal practice overhead. Like we talked about today, you know, the team is your greatest asset. They're the greatest potential. They're 25% of this pie. The lab is somewhere around 10%. Dental supplies are 5%. Marketing is 5%. Office supplies are 2%. Other stuff is 15%. So how can we increase profitability? Well, one of the ways we increase profitability is we produce more. So if we produce more to increase our profitability, what do we have to do? We have to collect more. That's number 2 on your handout. You've got to produce more, or you can collect more. Well, in order to collect it, you've got to produce it. The third way to increase profitability is you have to write off less. Well, any of you that are participating providers know that the reimbursements aren't necessarily getting higher. The reimbursements are getting lower. So we're fighting that battle. The fourth way to increase your profitability is you've got to reduce your overhead. Well, you can only do that so much because you've got to staff for the gross. But your overhead's based on the net. And so, yes, there are some cost-cutting ways. You know, maybe you can combine appointments. Maybe you can do some quadrant dentistry so that you don't have to set up the treatment rooms as often or as many times and run sterilization. You know, maybe you make more efficient hours. You know, there's lots of ways to do this. Who in here knows the average cost to set up one clinical area for a patient, one treatment room for a patient? 12? Yeah. 60, so 12 and 60. I say it's about $35 for one patient. Huh? 47. So between 12 and 60, that's a wide range. So if it just for an average that it costs $30 to $40 to seat one patient, that's significant. That's significant. The fifth way to increase your profitability is to spend less than you make, which means save money. Produce more. The first one is to produce more. The second one is to collect more. The third one is to write off less. The fourth one is to reduce your overhead. And the fifth one is spend less than you make. Let's just look at these graphs, and I don't want you to get bogged down with the numbers, but just play with me for a minute. Let's pretend that your practice runs on a 60% overhead, and let's just pretend that your monthly production is $100,000. So that means your pre-tax profit is $40,000. Let's say that you're a participating provider and your adjustments are 10% for that month, okay? Which means that your adjusted production is $90,000. So you now need to do 133% of what you were doing, so 33% more of what you were doing to make the same pre-tax profit. Dentistry is not making another widget. Dentistry is a high-touch profession, and there's a high overhead attached with dental procedures and dentistry, and we can't just make another widget. If your overhead is 60%, and a lot of people are fighting to get to the 60%, and you produce that same $100,000, your pre-tax profit is $40,000, which, by the way, team members in here, that doesn't mean that your doctor makes $40,000 a month. That means that that $40,000 goes back into the practice for taxes, for investments in the practice, in equipment, other future growth, all of those things, the doctor's salary, yada, yada. It doesn't mean that the doctor takes home $40,000. This fee adjustment of 20%, so let's say on average you adjust 20% of your monthly production, now you have to do 200% of the volume to equal the same net. This is the trap. We think because we're busy that equals profitable. It doesn't. Busy does not equal profit. Let's look at 70% overhead. The same 100,000, 30,000 is the net or the profit. 10% adjustments, you've got to do 150%. So you've got to do 50% more volume to make the same. This is why it gets crazy some days. And the days and the months that you feel exhausted because you've seen 1,000 patients, this is why. And you're like, but I'm not getting ahead. Exactly, because this is killing us. If we look at that 70% with a 20% adjustment, and by the way, these fees the adjustments are pretty conservative. Some plans require you to write off 30%. You've got to do 300% of the volume to make the same. So in dentistry, any adjustment comes off the bottom line, and these adjustments are not dollar for dollar. They make a huge impact on the team, on our other patients, and on ourselves. So how do we look at these things? What should the doctor's production be? Well, ideally, we would be engineering the schedule every single day, and we would have blocks in the schedule of the procedures that we want to do more of. So whether we want to do more crowns or endo or partials or dentures or implants or whatever we want to do more of, that we would strategically place those blocks so that we plan for it so that it can happen. The hygiene production, like Linda said, 33%. Go back, look at your hygiene production. Is it 33%? Is it higher? If it's higher, then maybe the doctor production isn't high enough. Why is that? Is the team co-diagnosing for you? I know they can't legally diagnose, but they can talk and they can show a patient a picture. And are they supporting you? The doctor can't be in every room all day, every day. The key to tapping into the potential is to using your team members to their fullest potential and helping them to grow and reach the next level and expand their duties to what the law allows in your state. So the hygiene production, are they setting the stage for case acceptance? Are they co-diagnosing? Are they doing the periodontal therapy in your practice? A good measure of your perio is 1/3 of your total hygiene should come from periodontal procedures. So go back and look at that. I've seen everything from 2% to 40%. How much of your hygiene total production is coming from perio, the 4,000 codes? Your office collections, where are you with your collections. If you can produce it, you've got to collect it. This is where the team comes in. 98%, 98 to 99% is what you should be collecting. If you're not, why? Maybe we need to look into Care Credit, Wells Fargo, City Health, whatever, to make it easy for patients to say yes and to make it fit into their life and their budget. The continuing care effectiveness and the scheduling efficiency, utilizing those team members. You know, ideally less than 10% of your schedule would be open time or broken appointments or missed appointments. Obviously, the lower, the better. But there are going to be emergencies. There are going to be things that patients can't avoid. There will be true illnesses. The continuing care effectiveness. Most offices run between 50 and 55% effectiveness. Ideally, it'd be 85%. So that 85% of your patients in your hygiene continuing care would be seen on a regular basis. Most often it's more like 50 or 55%. Well, if you think about that 1/3 of the doctor treatment comes out of hygiene, sometimes that's why the doctor's chair is slower, because it's not coming out of hygiene like it should be. So looking at these things and asking your accountant, asking your consultant, asking your coach, seeking out people that are doing what you want to be doing will all help you make your practice a masterpiece. And looking at the services you provide. The oral DNA is a great way to expand some services. Invisalign, Velscope. I mean, there's lots of things coming down the pike. This is another slide about accounts receivable. If $1 is charged out today, in 91 days, that same dollar's worth 73 cents. In a year, that same dollar's worth 26 cents. So today, not tomorrow. Collecting it today, not tomorrow. So we work hard. We want to be compensated for that. Another way to look at the profitability is to systemize and automate any procedures that can be automated. So that high touch, high tech part of the practice. Well, one way to do that is to use the billing services, electronic billing. Dentrix has e-billing, Softent, EagleSoft, all of the services. Use those services that can be automated. Use electronic claims. It surprises me how many offices don't use electronic claims. How many of you in here are using MDE, Mercury Data Exchange? Anybody? MDE, okay, one. You like it? Love it. He loves it. Why? Because they automate some of these services. They provide real-time claims. So the patient can be sitting right in front of the financial coordinator, and that financial coordinator knows exactly what the insurance is going to cover. There's no billing for $5 or $10 or $20 down the road. So for $29 a month, that's the best $29 a month you'll ever spend. So write down why MDE, like why, the word why, like WHYMDE.com. That's a service. I don't get anything from them for telling you. We use them in my office with Dentrix Claim Shuttle, and they provide an awesome service for a very small amount of money. And they save a lot of time, right? And they prevent denied claims. They also can report eligibility to you.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Sorry, but I'm confused.
Okay.
So we just recently went to Dentrix. Prior
Okay.
to that, I used Claim Shuttle with MDE.
Yes.
Now I went to Dentrix.
Yes.
So
But
we're
you're,
using e-claims
yes.
with Dentrix.
Yes.
So I'm not using MDE anymore.
You can use both. We use both. Because there are, not every insurance provider does real-time claims.
Right.
There are more and more adding every month. The advantage of using MDE is their claims are 29 cents a month. Dentrix, I think, are 49 or 59 cents. I mean, 29 cents a claim. They're 49 or 59 cents a claim. Plus the ones that are real-time, you get back sooner. So we actually use both services. So for $29 for the monthly fee, it's worth it to save time and money. Does that make sense? So we actually use both. Now, you're using Dentrix G5.
Yeah.
I know there's been some glitches. I haven't upgraded to G5 yet. But I know there's been some issues with the claims because in a couple of my offices that are on G5. So we need to look into that and make sure that that's all smooth and transition. But it's not so much with MDE, it's more a Dentrix thing. And so they're working on some of those things, but just FYI. Okay, so we actually use both. Okay. So like I said, ways to increase your profitability. You decrease the overhead, you increase the production, you can increase your fees, you decrease your adjustments. Making sure that you're submitting fees every year to the plans that you're participating with. They're not going to tell you to update your fees. They don't care that you get a higher reimbursement. Make sure that you're updating those whenever they allow it. You know, looking at these services, Invisalign, TMJ, sleep medicine, having your team co-diagnose for you, and then treatment planning and utilizing the technology, the cameras, oral DNA, all of these things to use at your disposal, using those resources. And your hygiene production, you know, like I said, oral DNA, looking at these periodontal treatments, Arrestin, Atrodox, and helping the hygienist learn co-diagnosis. This is another tip. Doctors, write this down. Spend 30 minutes a month with your hygiene team and go through some pictures and explain to them why you would recommend what you would recommend. And synchronize your team so that if you're recommending a crown and every time they look at the tooth and think you're going to recommend nothing, there's a big gap between what you would recommend and what they're seeing. Help them see what you see. Go through photos, and photos are a great way to do this rather than doing this in front of the patient. But photos are a great way to do this. Sit down with them and go through some cases and show them what you see. And I guarantee you they'll start doing it, and they get it. Because yes, they cannot diagnose, but they can talk. And using that technology, the intraoral camera. So you have a card in front of you. I hope that you all do. I would like you to take that card, and I would like for you to answer one or more of these questions. So today I was surprised about blank. I now understand blank. I've changed my mind about blank. As a result of today's learning, I will never blank. Or from now on, I will always blank. So take a moment and answer these, or one of them or two of them. So would anybody like to share? Let me rephrase that. Will someone share? You now understand blank. You're committed to blank. Yes?
I was surprised how much writing off insurance really affects your bottom line.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. And we get in that trap and nobody teaches us those things. So it's really important to look at that. Excellent. What else? Here, you need a... Ready? Oh, that was a good catch. Okay, who else? Yes?
I guess how large of a role photography can play in your production?
So you were surprised about how large a role photography can play in your production and case acceptance. Excellent. Here, we'll pass this along. What else? Who else? Yes?
I now understand that I should call patients.
Doctor, thank you. He now understands that he should call patients. And I know you have a phenomenal practice, and I know you guys do 1,000 things right, and you're working with Lois, and she's helping you put the icing on the cake. So, but that's one little thing that you can do that will set you apart. Awesome. Yes?
Our doctors also, I mean, you brought up the calling the patient as a new patient. Our doctors always call any patient at night after getting anesthesia.
Yes.
Any patient.
Totally agree.
Absolutely
Awesome.
blows them away.
Give and your doctor was here, right? Yeah. Yay. Her doctor calls any patient after having any anesthetic.
And the feedback is
The feedback. And then it saves you those calls the next day of, oh, something's rough, or should I feel this way, or is this okay, or can I brush, or whatever. Yeah, it's, that's right. That's right. That's right. It saves so much time, and it allows you to call another patient, or to reactivate a patient, or check on dental benefits, or schedule a patient. Okay, what else? Yes.
I had a quick question about that.
Yes.
I've always called my new patients the night after or the night of my initial examination. And I don't want it to be like overkill calling them the night before.
Right.
Hello, and then so you would suggest making a switch to the night before.
Yes.
I usually call my patients. Generally, I see 25 patients a day to do operative and stuff like that. So I'm really busy as an associate. So I usually only do it if I'm doing extractions rather than anesthesia. I'll be calling
25 people. Sure. So maybe in that case where you're seeing 25 patients a day, maybe you have your dental assistant call some of them. Or if they have, you know, just a minor procedure, then maybe she calls some of them. I mean, I truly still think it's the best for the dentist to call. My hope would be that those 25 appointments would turn into 10 appointments that are larger quadrant dentistry, or even better, one full arch. So, and the other thing he said is that he calls his new patients the day of or the day after. And I think it's important because it gives your team more information and saves them time when they see him that next day to call him before. Okay. Has everybody put their name in the bag? Okay. Dr. Kerr, can you come draw? Oh, names that are, okay. Can you bring the names up?
And for the record, my name is not in there.
Oh, sure. Sure.
I can't do that. Would you like to read that?
I will. Marie Noonan? Ah, congratulations.
Come on down.
Yes, here you go. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So there's, oh yes, see, you get to try anything. So again, I don't get anything from Discus other than I use their material, and I asked them that I wanted some to give away because, you know, I talk about it and it works well for me. So, you know, tapping into your potential, using your team members, expanding your services, streamlining your systems, scheduling effectively, incorporating technology, really creating the masterpiece practice that you deserve. I want to close with this last quote. Our finest moments occur when we are feeling deeply uncomfortable, unhappy, or unfulfilled. It is only in such moments propelled by discomfort that we step out of our ruts and search for different ways or truer answers. So my hope for you is that you find different ways today and truer answers at this meeting, and you go back and make your practice a masterpiece. Thank you.